AITA for giving my old, slightly damaged MacBook to my cat and not my sister. Okay, so I know this sounds a little ridiculous, so bear with me. Just last week I purchased a new MacBook for myself. My old one lasted me 5 years and is still technically working, but due to some water damage the speakers are completely fucked, the screen flickers quite a bit when not charging, and overall it's just slow. I have no use for it anymore. Regarding my cat, so I live in a fairly small apartment, and although it has windows there really isn't much to see besides a few trees and the parking lot really. I got my cat a few months ago and have a cat tree by the window, shelves and spaces so she can climb up high, and quite a few toys I play with. At first, my car had no problem hanging by the window, but eventually I noticed she started to get bored, and while I'm in the middle of working she would constantly meow or do mischievous things. I put on cat TV a few times for her and noticed she really enjoyed it and would stare at it for hours. However, I would put this on my new TV as this was really the only free screen I had. She would at times pounce at the TV, once almost knocking it back. After I got my brand new laptop I figured I'll barely get anything for selling my old one, I might as well use it for my cat. It's worked great. I put on cat TV on YouTube and have the back of the laptop screen against the wall beside me, so while I'm working she just sits there looking at the screen, occasionally pawing at it and then falling asleep. Of course I still play with her and give her plenty of pets, but I've found this is a great way to keep her mentally stimulated. This also prevents any concern of her damaging my electronics or hurting herself. I took a photo of her sitting and looking at the laptop because it looked like she was hard at work and though it was funny, and sent it to my family. My brother and mom laughed, but my sister messaged me, "Sister, hey, you gave your MacBook to the cat." Me, yes. Mine was pretty banged up and I needed a new one and this keeps her occupied. Okay, well if you're no longer using it, can I have it? Well there really is no point considering there are so many issues with it. It's not like the cat owns it, I just use it for her to keep her occupied when I feel like she needs to see more than just the parking lot. So you're gonna keep it for your cat rather than give it to me who needs it for school? MacBooks aren't cheap. I'm aware they aren't cheap, but there are other companies. This basically went on for a bit until she said I was being an inconsiderate asshole. If the MacBook was in better condition I would totally give it to her, but fixing the screen and speakers and replacing the battery will cost about the same or more as a mid-range Windows laptop. My mom and brother just kinda laughed at it and said not to worry, but my sister is being pretty cold with me. NTA, and from your sister's attitude, it sounds like your cat deserves it more anyway. NTA, it's also probable if you gave it to her in the condition it was in, she'd complain you gave her a busted laptop, gift horse and mouth and all that. Honestly, unless there is a specific reason you need a MacBook, drop the money on a different laptop that's not going to need so many repairs. I stepped away from Reddit and I'm blown away by the awards. Happy birthday to me. Cat tax! Info, does your sister currently have a computer? Is she doing online school? Fucking finally. This piece of info makes a huge difference. I did most of college with a 10-year-old laptop about the same degree of broken as Op's laptop. I avoided using it most of the time and went to a lab on campus when I could, and got up early many days to have a quiet place to work with a totally functioning computer. Thing is, it would have been about $100 to $150 to fix it myself because it's an old Dell, not a MacBook. But I also didn't want to take the risk of totally breaking it changing parts until I had a new computer. Battery was basically shot and the LCD occasionally wouldn't work without being reconnected. My mom smashed the corners of it, kicking it off the coffee table while I was in HS, and I'm amazed it held up after that. It was a pitter to use, but it gave me the freedom to work at home when I wanted/needed to. I could still use it around campus where I had an outlet. Didn't try to fix it because having it semi-working was so much better than not having it at all. I think people forget not everyone has a computer of their own. If she did have one and thought it was an upgrade to a MacBook, that's a different story. Up still wouldn't have to give it to her, but she can probably put Cat TV on a cheap kid tablet, and those are a lot cheaper than a full functioning, not Chromebook, laptop. AITA for dressing nicer than the bride at my cousin's wedding. I got invited to my cousin's very small wedding, which was last week. I had never met her before the wedding, so I knew it was important to make a good impression. I also have deep insecurities about how I look due to being bullied as a child, so I always need to look as nice as possible when I'm going out, even just to get coffee. Started planning what I would wear immediately. The invite said cocktail attire, and I settled on a tea-length dress I had worn to other people's weddings, with matching colored chiffon shawl and flats as well as a real pearl necklace and earrings. I didn't buy anything new for this, just did my best with what I have. I made sure my makeup was decent and didn't clash, and made sure to get my hair cut a week before the wedding so it would look its best as well. Well, I think I was the only one at her wedding that cared how they looked. Most of the 30 guests were in t-shirts/polos and shorts. I was one of 2 guests wearing a dress. The bridesmaid wore something that looked like it was out of Hot Topic. The groom wore a tuxedo shirt and black jeans. The bride wore, holy hell. The bride wore a custom gothic dress that looked like a purple, red, and black patchwork dress. Her hair was not brushed, and she did black makeup so heavily that you could barely see her face. I was shocked. Several people came up to me during the reception to say that I looked nice, but was upstaging the bride, which was not my intention. The bride herself was quiet the whole night. I tried to get to know her as that's what she requested, but she wasn't interested. The wedding ended and on my way home, I got flooded with calls from her mother and new husband that I was a horrible person for dressing like Grace Kelly and going out of my way to make the bride feel ugly at her own wedding. I just can't go somewhere, especially to what I thought was a formal event, looking less than my best. I wanna see the photos. This wedding sounds crazy. I went to a wedding like this once. It was at a fire station. Anyways, they're divorced now. NTA. Where in the world is cocktail attire only t-shirts and shorts? Did you get a separate invite or WTF? How are you the only one who assumed cocktail attire actually meant cocktail attire? They must have confused cocktail with bar. NTA. The invite said cocktail attire. You wore cocktail attire. It seems like the bride and groom have an entirely different version of this concept which was on them to communicate, especially to people who weren't in their close immediate circle. You said you never met this cousin before the wedding, so maybe it's best to go back to this type of relationship now. Seems drama. AITA for pulling into a parking lot and making my brother wait for 15 minutes after he lied to me. I 20F have a younger brother 17 meters, who's a student. His school starts at 8 AM but he wants to get there by 7:30, preferably even sooner because she likes to hang out with his friends in front of the school before school starts. Because of Rona, my parents don't want my brother to take the packed bus to school, so they drive him themselves. Since my brother also wants to arrive at school extremely early, my parents also have wake up way earlier so my brother can get his way. My parents and my brother usually leave the house at 7:10 AM so my brother can arrive to school when he wants to. At some point my parents got fed up and refused to wake up earlier so my brother can meet his friends before school. My brother got really pissed. Then my brother got a girlfriend. Sometimes my parents take a detour to also pick the girlfriend up, but that results in them arriving at school only about 10 minutes before school starts. Because of the detour they also have to leave the house at 7:10 AM like they usually would if my brother got his way. Since my parents like my brother's girlfriend, they do her this favor. My brother's girlfriend doesn't always have to be at school by 8 AM, sometimes she can get there later because of her schedule. If she has to be at school later than my brother, we obviously don't give her a ride. Now, for the past couple of weeks my brother started lying to my parents so he can get to school earlier. He basically says that they also have to pick up his girlfriend, and halfway to school he says that they actually don't have to pick her up. Then my parents arrive at school at 7:30 AM. just like my brother wants to so he can meet his friends. For the past week I have been driving my brother to school because of my parents' work schedules. We also picked his girlfriend up a couple times, but yesterday my brother pulled what he had been pulling with my parents for over a month now. Halfway through our ride to school he said we don't actually have to pick up his girlfriend. I got pissed and pulled into the next supermarket parking lot, where my brother started yelling at me. I just sat there playing on my phone for 15 minutes, then I drove him to school and dropped him off 10 minutes before school starts. When my brother got home from school he started to complain about me and insult me to my parents. My mom says what I did was just what my brother needed, but my dad says I overreacted, so now I'm unsure. So was I overreacting? AITA for pulling into the parking lot and wait for 15 minutes after my brother lied to me. Edit. Wow, so this blew up very unexpectedly. First of all, thank you so much for the awards, I really appreciate it. Secondly, I want to answer some of the most frequently asked info questions. On why can't he drive himself? In my country you have to be 18 years old to drive by yourself. 2. Can he hang out with his friends outside of school? Yes. He hangs out with them every weekend and sometimes after school. NTA, you're a fucking legend. He's definitely TA for lying to you and your parents, though he deserved it. NTA, your brother manipulated you guys to cater to his schedule. It's one thing to ask to get dropped off early and another to be lied to about it. Also, you guys don't have to pick up his GF but do so sometimes anyways, and that's rad. He's acting entitled and needed to be taken down a peg. And you still took him to school with enough time to get to class. NTA, if it had been the first or second time that had happened I would have said differently. But that many times there's no way he's being honest. NTA, the more I read of these issues, mainly involving school-aged children, I just think again and again how terrible some parents are at setting boundaries on their children's behavior. Blame your parents for this stuff, not your brother. He's a product of their poor behavior.